Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new module of the course AI Ethics Global Perspectives. My name is Marta Galceran, and I'm Research Fellow at the Global Cities Program at CIDOB. For those of you that might not be familiar with this institution, we are the Barcelona Center for International Affairs. Next year, we are turning 50, which means that CIDOB is a well-established and important institution in Catalonia. Yet the Global Cities Program is not that old. It was established in 2018 as a response to the observation that cities were no longer just local actors. Instead, they've become laboratories for global solutions and also important actors in global governance. So at Cities, we analyze the emergence of cities in international relations from three perspectives. First, we tackle cities in global governance institutions, processes, and also norms. Second, we tackle the environmental challenges that cities might face, and here we deal specifically and mainly with climate change. And thirdly, we analyze cities and socioeconomic and digital challenges, which is the research I'm leading. In this sense, specifically, I'm interested in the discussion of how technology impacts the lives and the rights of people living in cities. So we are actively promoting digital rights and the idea of technological humanism, both of which lie at the core we are doing at CIDOB. If you are not familiar with this term, technological humanism has to do with pursuing digitalization strategies in which the technology deployment respects human rights at the same time that fosters social innovation. So it means going from a tech-driven approach to digitalization to a human-driven one. One of the projects I'm leading is the Global Observatory of Urban Artificial Intelligence. I will explain in a minute a bit more about it, and I guess this is also the reason for which I'm here with you today. Okay, so with no further ado, let's move into the structure of the course, what we have today. The guiding thread of this presentation would be the idea of trustworthy cities, so ethical artificial intelligence applied to urban context. And how are we doing to do that? Well, I seek to respond to three main questions. What is urban artificial intelligence? Specifically, what is ethical urban artificial intelligence? Second, why does this matter for cities? So why cities should be thinking and promoting algorithmic tools to deploy their services, their solutions. Also, what challenges and what opportunities does artificial intelligence bring to cities? And finally, how are cities responding to the challenge of moving towards a more ethical use of artificial intelligence? What principles, what regulations, what best practices are of importance here? So the what, the why, and the how of ethical urban artificial intelligence. But to kick off the debate, I like to start by playing a segment of a short documentary film we produced at CIDOB, which we released a couple of weeks ago, and that you may find very soon in our YouTube channel as well, just to start reflecting on the big questions around the ethical use of artificial intelligence in cities.
Life is speeding up. We live under constant changes that can make us feel uncomfortable. It isn't very easy to assume the omnipresence of technology without understanding its scope and where it will lead us. And in the meantime, data about our lives are being collected and processed with the help of artificial intelligence. And what exactly is artificial intelligence? Do we know what the actual presence of AI in our cities means and how it affects us? What does it really mean to make decisions based on our data? What do AI-based decisions imply? What risks does it pose, and to what extent can it improve the lives of people living in cities? Trustworthy cities. Ethics in the AI era.
I hope we'll be able to respond to some of these questions in the presentation today, but for the moment, let's go into a definition. What is urban artificial intelligence? So we can define it as the collection, interpretation, and analysis of urban data in order to support policy-related decision-making, as well as the development of solutions that are or could be used in an urban context. And I'd like you to see now, play the continuation of this video, some of the solutions already being implemented in many cities worldwide.
There are currently several sorts of AI used to improve the management of life in cities around the world. They are used in several different fields. Let's see some examples. In traffic control and to improve mobility in cities such as London, Austin, or New Jersey. In chatbots in order to enhance communication with citizens regarding different topics. For health inquiries in Helsinki, to find and compare parking prices in Buenos Aires, or to manage digital procedures in Singapore. Artificial intelligence is also used to improve waste management in the streets of different Dutch cities or in Melbourne, Australia. Another application is facial recognition, used in cities such as London and in Madrid, where it has been pilot tested to pay in some public means of transport by using facial recognition. We also find AI systems to manage air quality forecast data, or to certify if our environment is subject to different kinds of pollution in cities such as Vilnius or Los Angeles. In cities like Barcelona, it is also used to manage petitions by citizens, and also to support the management of public space, by monitoring the city's beaches capacity.
So we've seen just some examples of how artificial intelligence can be applied to cities, but let's look now on some of the big questions around the application of this technology in our cities. For instance, where are the limits of the decisions we can allow artificial intelligence to make? Should we set any limit? How can we ensure that the algorithm tools do not discriminate on the basis of gender, sexual orientation, and others? How can we ensure that fundamental democratic values, such as freedom and equality or democracy, are not being jeopardized? What is the role of the private sector in the deployment and control of these new technologies? How can public administrations lead innovation regarding AI in the private sector in order to guarantee ethical standards? And that's an important one, because we know that most of the solutions are being deployed in the private sector, right? So there is just an imbalance relation here with the administrations. And then who is responsible when AI fails? So question of accountability, and this relates to some of the principles that we will discuss today. So in the context of these debates and these big questions, a key issue is what tools do cities have to promote an ethical use and deployment of urban artificial intelligence solutions. And here we can speak mainly of three tools. First, it has to do with the local innovation ecosystem. So administrations can align the innovation ecosystems with the values of the technological humanism. Make sure that many actors within their cities, private companies, but also civil society organizations, academia, research, work to promote, or that has as its core business, an ethical use of artificial intelligence. The more solutions we have in this sense, the more close we are to having a variety of options to deploy ethical artificial intelligence in cities. But then a second really, really important tool is procurement, public procurement. And you can work towards this direction by introducing, for instance, digital right clauses in the tendering process. This is something that many cities around the world are already doing, and there are even some open templates that are being circulated to so for cities interested in promoting similar policies. And the last one, the big one, regulation, and that's not always easy. Here we have from setting standards and principles to drafting strategies, AI strategies similar to the ones that have many national governments, but also international institutions. And this is the next point I want to make. Regulation. How we advance towards regulation of artificial intelligence at the local level. Well, the problem is that, in fact, all cities are affected by the regulation of other tiers of government. In fact, very few have in place local regulations around an ethical use of artificial intelligence. In fact, if we briefly look into how is AI being regulated globally, we see a fragmented scenario. We need to take within these regulation efforts, we need to take into account the efforts by national governments. So since 2016, there has been a certain proliferation of national declarations, frameworks, and strategies seeking to regulate AI. But as I was mentioning, these efforts are still very fragmented. We lack a common framework. If we look specifically at the global level, some of the initiatives worth taking into account are the recommendations on the ethics of artificial intelligence by UNESCO, the OECD AI principles, and also the upcoming AI Act of the European Union, which for the moment is the most advanced regulation, which provides a risk-based framework to regulate artificial intelligence. But the key question here is, where is the local level, right? And I like to mention two initiatives here that are connected. All these two initiatives, in fact, are connected to the idea that no city can go alone when advancing in the definition of ethical AI principles suitable to the local level. Here, I refer to the importance of alliances of cities, and I discuss mainly two examples. One is Eurocities. Before that, I like to make a brief comment on city networks. City networks are really important actors. They are networking governance structures that facilitate cooperation among cities with other actors. They serve also as platforms to lobby for specific advocacy goals, but also are important actors to support capacity building, knowledge exchange, and also policy implementation at the local level. If we take the case of Eurocities, Eurocities is the major, the city network gathering the largest cities in Europe. It has more than 200 members. And in the context of artificial intelligence, it is interesting the work that they are doing, because they are sort of like collecting the views that cities may have on this on the upcoming Artificial Intelligence Act at the European level, and bringing the demands of the cities to the current negotiations, so as to make sure that this regional standard takes into consideration or is suitable also for the local level. And here you can see some of the questions that Eurocities is bringing to the discussion, such as the impact that AI may have on local job markets, or the issue around the collection of data, because you know that AI needs huge amounts of data, and most of this data will be collected and processed and used in cities. But I'd like to discuss another initiative, which is the Cities Coalition for Digital Rights. The Cities Coalition for Digital Rights was created in 2018 by three leading cities, Barcelona, Amsterdam, and New York. And it was emerged out of the observation that cities need to foster digital rights, but that there was a vacuum, there was a gap in the understanding from one side that cities have of those digital rights. So what does a digital right mean in practice? But also there was a lack of commitment of many cities around the world around digital rights. So they seek to create momentum to foster commitment around a digital rights movement, but also to provide a space for capacity building around different cities to discuss in a sort of like safe environment the challenges they face in their day-to-day running of the cities when implementing those digital rights framework. Today, it's a coalition composed of 55 cities, and here you have some examples. They're from all over the world, from Bordeaux to Los Angeles to also Stockholm or Sydney. And the coalition is supported by some partners: UN Habitat, the UN Agency for Human Settlements, Eurocities that I just mentioned before, UCLG, and Metropolis, which are again two big city networks. Out of this collaboration emerged a declaration of the Cities Coalition for Digital Rights, in which cities commit to promote a universal and equal access to the internet and digital literacy, also to ensure or to work towards ensuring privacy and data protection and security. Also, they identified as a principle that has to do with digital rights, transparency, accountability, and non-discrimination of data, content, and algorithms. Third, participation, democracy, diversity, and inclusion. And finally, open and ethical digital service standards. Those five principles, or those five dimensions of the Declaration on Digital Rights are, as we will discuss in a minute, very relevant also for their commitments, for their initiatives regarding the regulation of artificial intelligence. So ethical artificial intelligence is closely connected in this sense to digital rights frameworks. One of the initiatives of the Cities Coalition for Digital Rights was the Global Observatory of Urban Artificial Intelligence, and here you have the website for so you can access it. The Global Observatory of Urban Artificial Intelligence is a joint project of CIDOB, so the think tank I'm belonging to, and the cities of Barcelona, Amsterdam, and London, so three co-members of the Cities Coalition for Digital Rights with the support of UN Habitat. The Global Observatory of Urban Artificial Intelligence has three main aims. First, research, so filling research gaps in the development of standards on ethical urban artificial intelligence. Here we developed 6 principles that I will discuss in a minute. The second is monitoring AI initiatives, right? So knowing a little bit what is the state of the art, where cities around the world are doing, what challenges they're facing. So it's sort of like tracking and following the development of this emerging field of urban artificial intelligence. And finally, dissemination. So it's not only contributing to fill research gaps, monitoring what is being developed, but also disseminate these practices, disseminate principles, practices, strategies, so as to inspire more cities around the world to promote similar initiatives. So let's now look into ethical artificial intelligence principles I just mentioned, and here we find fairness and non-discrimination, transparency and openness, accountability, safety and cybersecurity, privacy protection, and sustainability. You'll see these 6 principles are nothing new. They are commonly found in national government strategies and declaration, and also in some of the global frameworks I just mentioned. What we did in collaboration with many cities of the Cities Coalition for Digital Rights through a set of workshops and meetings was identify those principles that could be applied and relevant also to the local level. The next step is we have 6 principles. How can we implement them? What those principles mean in practice? And to do that, we thought that it would be relevant to identify examples, best practices of ethical uses of artificial intelligence in cities around the world, so as to inspire us to give ideas of how can these principles could be implemented, translated into specific projects. And here is where it comes the idea of launching an atlas of urban artificial intelligence. This is a tool that we produced that it needs to serve the needs of both cities but also researchers, and it presents different initiatives on ethical use of artificial intelligence. You can here sort, for instance, by the size of the city, so you can compare cities with similar dimensions, also by type of initiatives. For instance, it is quite common that a city starts by a set of small projects that they come together into a policy and that might eventually become a strategy, but also we have differing levels of implementation of the initiatives from early stage to fully implemented one, and we have initiatives from a variety of sectors. We mentioned that at the beginning of this course, urban artificial intelligence is being applied to all sorts of fields, from mobility to social services. Here you can also track by the 6 principles I just mentioned. So if you're interested in seeing initiatives that have to do with accountability, you can do that. Also, for the moment, we have around 113 initiatives from 42 cities that can be also seen in a list. So you have the map view, but also the list view. Let's look at a couple of examples. We have Barcelona, the city where I live. Here we have some interesting projects, such as the use of AI to monitor beach capacity, but also AI in social services or the use in communication channels. Barcelona actually is one of the few cities having an AI strategy. And here, for each of the projects and just the initiative, you have a description and then some basic information regarding the principles that have been used, the implementation phase, like the timeline, what was this initiative being launched, and some additional information. Another very active city is Amsterdam. Amsterdam actually has 17 projects, so it's a city with more projects in our atlas. And here you find some more examples on how can artificial intelligence be used in an ethical way. And you have, for instance, one of the key initiatives is the algorithm register, but you have also how to eradicate poverty or waste management. I invite you to have a look at that. Yep. Let's go back again to the ethical principles and see how they can be translated. How can we into practice? What they mean, and what key questions cities need to ask themselves when implementing those principles. So let's start by fairness and non-discrimination, which can be described as the ability of an algorithmic tool to not discriminate against an individual or group because of personal characteristics of membership of a vulnerable group, such as ethnic or sexual minorities. And here we produce just a checklist, I would say, that cities can go through and see whether the tools, the projects they have meet these principles. For instance, they need to, one key question in this regard is, does the system have a clear task to perform? Or how has the task been chosen? Also, citizen participation. Have citizens participated in it in any way? What technology was used? Does it employ publicly available tools? Also, is there a strategy or a set of procedures to avoiding bias in the AI system during the design? Does it include diversity and representativeness? Also, is there a mechanism for citizens to report discriminatory or biased practices? Those are quick questions around fairness and non-discrimination. Let's look now into transparency and openness, which can be defined as the ability of an external actor to investigate the relationship between two variables and see through the model's architectures. It means examining the relationship between cause and effect, which is interpretability, and or the significance of whitening, so explainability. In fact, this principle is connected to the question of how to understand what and why AI does whatever it does. So in this sense, interpretable and explainable models of AI are as important as determining responsibility. Some key questions here. Is there a mechanism for citizens to report potential abuses? How is the quality of the input assessed? Is the system traceable? So questions of traceability, transparency, explainability. Are the decisions of the system transparent? Is the system explainable? Do citizens understand the system's decisions? How do they communicate whether they understand them or not? What mechanism does the city use to provide information to residents about AI systems deployed in the public space? And finally, how does the city provide information about risks and the necessity of use? Accountability. Accountability can be defined as the state of being responsible or answerable for a system, its behavior, and its potential impacts. It refers to allocating responsibility for and demonstrating compliance with legal requirements and moral ethical principles. So, essentially, the principle of accountability seeks to respond to who should be blamed when AI causes harm. So for instance, who is responsible when a self-driving car crashes or an intelligent medical service or device fails? Some key questions here is the system auditable? How frequently is the system audited? Who audits the system? Will third parties do so, or is it a task force from the local administration? Let's see now some examples from this, incorporating these three principles. Here, the most relevant example would be AI registers being developed by the cities of Helsinki, of Amsterdam. Interestingly, they've done that collaboratively. So again, I refer to this idea of alliances and city networks as important spaces to advance on ethical use of artificial intelligence. So basically, an AI register is a window. It's for citizens to see on sort of like how or to learn about how artificial intelligence is being used as part of cities' services, right? And here you have the cases of health center chatbot or chatbot that had to do with rental apartments in Helsinki. Similar algorithmic system is being deployed in Amsterdam, and here for each of the services that the city services that use algorithmic systems, the city commits to provide the following information: the data sets that have been used to train the system, the data processing procedures, also if the system includes non-discrimination provisions, if there's some human oversight on the decisions, and also finally risk management considerations. Let's move to the next principle, privacy protection, which in fact is the most basic digital right, right? It's one of the most prominent digital rights for sure, and an essential component of an ethical use of algorithmic tools. Actually, the administration should pay attention to the level of intrusiveness and assess the potential impact, direct or indirect, of the tool on the citizens' right to privacy. So, how can we define it? The privacy protection is ensured when cities guarantee anonymization of data, create security against the anonymization, guarantee that data is always available, and adhere to the right of explanation. Some key questions include: what data has been used to train the algorithm? Where is that data from? What is the relation between or behind the chosen data? Which measures have been put in place to achieve privacy by design systems? Who takes care of data? So that data management. Who is data? How is this data processed? What are the safeguards? Does the system comply with data protection laws? How? What is the impact of the system on the individual's right to privacy, intimacy, dignity, and integrity? And here, an example I want to share with you is the city of Montreal, who deployed a snow-level detection system that is basically AI. What AI does here, it helps the city to prevent fraud made by snow removal companies by verifying the level of snow in each reported dump truck. So the model basically provides the level of snow in percentage using a picture as input. The cameras can only identify snow, so no plate numbers are identified in the process, and this is the privacy element we just discussed. Safety and cybersecurity. So algorithmic decisions must be resilient to cyber attacks and adversarial threats that have the objective of altering their functions. In this sense, safety and cybersecurity refer to the process of ensuring a high degree of cybersecurity and technical robustness in the algorithmic decision systems to make them resilient to cyber attacks and adversarial threats that have the objective of altering their functions. Again, key questions here. What are the potential risks to AI systems? Are there measures in place to mitigate potential negative consequences? Is there a mechanism to monitor and evaluate the performance of the AI system? Is the AI system reliable and stable? How does performance affect its behavior? How is the system updated? Is the AI system reliable and stable, as I mentioned? Has the administration considered how to keep the system up to date, so maintenance? Does the design consider potential vulnerabilities related to data poisoning, model evasion, or inversion? Sustainability. So, sustainability has to do with efforts of finding new ways to develop AI systems in the most environmentally friendly way possible. So this principle is linked to the fact that the use of AI systems can negatively impact global efforts to fight climate change, as AI relies on storage and data centers that are highly energy consuming, and so is also linked to an increase in electronic waste generation. Key questions. What are the potential environmental impacts of the design and deployment of the AI system? Does the assessment consider the whole life cycle of the system or only its design? How can cities reduce, compensate for, and mitigate these impacts? What is the role of the city during this data life cycle? Do cities have urban data centers? What is the impact of the system on the local community, specifically on local economy, social interaction, resident administration interaction, people's rights and freedoms, etc.? And here, I want to mention that the cities that have been more advanced in regulating AI are those having an AI strategy in place. For instance, the government measure for the municipal algorithms and their strategy for an ethical promotion of artificial intelligence of the city of Barcelona. It's an example, but also the strategy of Amsterdam, but also London's emerging tech charter, or the artificial intelligence strategy of Buenos Aires. All of these strategies, strategies include the notions of cybersecurity and safety, and also sustainability that I just explained. So if you're interested about learning about more projects that include an ethical dimension or an ethical consideration on the deployment of artificial intelligence solutions in urban contexts, I invite you to check our atlas, where you can have much more examples. Also, you have here the link. You can access. It's free and available on our website. And above all, I ask you also to contribute if you know of any experience, any project, initiative, strategy that is not included in the atlas, to contribute, help us with this global effort. Well, thank you for your attention. Here you have my contact detail. Very happy to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you.